Hello, BookTube. I have a road trip book haul for you today. This morning, here it was bright and sunny here in Boston. It was mild. There's no hint of the storm to come. There's a storm that's settled on Boston now, but at the time it was a beautiful spring day. So uh, I was planning on going out anyway, and I got a text from one of my muscular teenagers telling me that he had access to a car. I don't do book forays all that often anymore. I am needed here and cannot afford the luxury of spending a whole day chasing down a used bookstore or two the way I used to. But a short trip I can still do. So I did. I gladly signed on. And we went out and about and got back just as the snow was falling and starting to fall. And I have a small pile of neat things that I wanted to show you. I had some finds, and I thought I'd start off with a Penguin classic, of course, since they're always a priority. This is Lord Dunsany. This is a collection of the stories of Lord Dunsany. Uh, it's in perfect condition. It will be part of Project Penguin, which is my goal is in the other room is to fill the entire wall with penguins. I'm very close to being able to do it. This has a selection of his short stories spanning his whole career. This is an author who's not well enough known as a precursor and gigantic stylistic influence on everybody from Tolkien to C.S. Lewis to H.P. Lovecraft. His stuff is great, and I knew there was a Penguin Classic out there of his stuff because I saw it on a BookTube channel. Somebody held it up. I forget who it was right now. It might have been Rich from Rich Reads. Whoever it was, I saw it and I thought, I want that. I had to resist the urge to say that in the comments field because I knew that I would find it. I thought it would be at the Brattle. It's weird to shop for secondhand books anywhere but the Brattle if you're me. Then the next one is a reprint. It's another reprint. It's Ivanho in the Modern Library edition, and the reason I got it is the reason that you would often get a reprint when you already have the book, and that is who does the introduction. In this case, it's Diana Gabaldon, the author of Outlander. Uh, I haven't read that essay wherever it originally occurred, if it was ever originally reprinted anywhere, and I love the book. And this is a very nice paperback, so it will certainly serve. I'll read her introduction. I'll probably end up rereading the book, and then I'll just find a home for it. I already have a couple of editions of Ivanhoe. I don't need another one. And it was dirt cheap though. Same thing with this next one, which I have. I buy it when I see a brand new stylish paperback of it. I buy it every single time, figuring I'll find somebody to give it to. And it's Brideshead Revisited, the classic novel by Evelyn Waugh, the thing that no critics in his own day and no critics since have ever called it his masterpiece, and yet history itself and readership has its own opinions of these things. I myself think it is a masterpiece. I think it's fantastic. I know people are forever recommending the trilogy that he did. I just Little Waugh goes a long way, and this is richly concentrated. It's also more quotable than any book he ever wrote. But and then there's this thing here, this lovely paperback of I don't know if you can see that. Keeping a lookout. This is Keeping a Sharp Lookout by John Burroughs. For some reason, this publisher decided to call it The Birds of John Burroughs, but the book was called Sharp Lookout, and it's John Burroughs was a naturalist and an essayist at the turn of the 20th century. He's wrote a whole string of gorgeous books that have had a rather unusual and uneven reprint history. I remember once, years and years ago in Boston, I found a whole set of really nice little hardcovers of them, dirt cheap, at I think it was the Boston Book Annex back when it existed, and I didn't get them. I didn't get them, even though they were full of lovely black and white photos, and I've regretted it. I'm sure that whole set will show up at the Brattle, or some equivalent set will show up at the Brattle. But in the meantime, this is lovely, and he's fantastic. So then the next one, next one's a bit of a find, a bit of an oddity. I read it years and years and years ago and loved it. It's this Lovers Aren't Company by Monica Sterling. There is our author, right there. This is 1947 or 48 novel. about an Italian woman who marries an American and then regrets at leisure because he turns out to be a lout. And after the war, she takes guardianship of her niece, and reading the book, I was reading when I was sort of fooling around with these books. Once we got back, I started rereading this one and was struck again by the fact that I really don't understand why her novels aren't better known, why she's not has no readership, no advocates, no reprints of any kind. I'm not really sure why that is. Lovers Aren't Company is quite a good book, and the main character, Francesca, is an amazing invention. There's nothing sentimental about her. In fact, I wanted to read you a part. Halfway through the book, something horrible happens to her. She starts to fall in love. This is not the character that happens to, and this is Sterling's description of the moment she realizes it. It's about as far away from Regency romance as you could get. A shiver ran through Francesca. She hunched her shoulders. Although she had taken considerable trouble to make herself obtuse over her own emotions, Francesca had not attained the degree of idiocy at which she aimed, and the direction in which her feelings were moving was sufficiently clear to inspire her with a mixture of indignation and discomfort, like that an unusually healthy person feels at the first onslaught of influenza. Not exactly a Hallmark card. So I was very happy to find the thing. It was just sitting there forlornly on a thrift shop shelf. No one would touch it. I'm sure it would have been thrown away in a week. Instead, I get to enjoy it. That's great. Also found this little thing, just tiny little black and white walkthrough of Michelangelo's Sculpture with a tiny amount of text that just something to slip in the pocket and just study. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. I have an LL Bean bag with more pockets than I know what to do with. I'm going to put this in one of them and just study it, on subways and buses. Study it at random, just to look at the fine detail, because the black and white photos in here are extremely good, even though it's small. The next one, I was very happy to find in the middle of nowhere. I was very happy to find it. It's Dictionary Johnson, by James Clifford, and this is the reason it's called Dictionary Johnson is because that was Samuel Johnson's nickname all throughout London. Once he achieved fame as the author of a dictionary of the English language, he'd already achieved notoriety as an essayist, and he would go on to do it. His little novel Rasselas was also on everybody's tongue. It was a fashionable thing, and this author wrote a great book called Young Sam Johnson about Samuel Johnson at the time of his life that we don't ever think about. Well, we don't think about Samuel Johnson at all anymore, but those of us who do, people who used to who think about him, you don't think about him as young and gangly and inexperienced. You think of him as the great Cam, this ponderous, absolutely formidable mental persona, and young Sam Johnson brushes that right away and gives us an immediate portrait of a young man starting out in the world in messy circumstances. And this book takes up where that book leads off and gives us the Samuel Johnson during the quarter of a century that made him Samuel Johnson, that made him famous, that made him this, essentially a public intellectual, actually paid a pension out of the public weal. And the author makes the inevitable and very canny decision to stop. He brings this book to a close right at the time when Boswell's Life of Johnson starts in earnest. So there's, the implicit torch passing. But one way or another, I knew of this book. I read the copy that used to belong to the Boston Athenaeum and really liked it, and just assumed, I have young Sam Johnson, and I just assumed sooner or later I would find it at the Brattle, and here I found it somewhere else. It's very odd. And then the last one probably counts as the find of the day, especially since it was so incredibly cheap, and it's this thing, the Landmark Herodotus. Ooh. It's by Bob Strassler, and his idea was to take classic. He did the Landmark Thucydides, the Landmark Herodotus. He takes these great sprawling classical works of history, including Herodotus, who's my favorite ancient historian, and has the inspired idea to ground it as much as possible in the real world to help the reader. So you get maps all throughout, incredibly detailed maps of what's going on in the stories that Herodotus is telling. That's and you wouldn't think that would mean all that much, but it does. It really does. It adds an amazing element of adventure to the whole thing. And I had a copy of this. You've heard this song before. I had a copy of this, and I have no idea what became of it. Probably I sold it to the Brattle by accident or whatever, or sent it to somebody, and then went without, and now I'm happy to have it again. This time I will hold on to it. This is a Herodotus edition to keep, no matter how many Herodotus editions you have, and that is it. That is a road trip book haul. All sorts of doubles and interesting little tidbits that I found by taking the car on the road, by being a passenger and being ferried from shop to shop. And then we hurried back here to beat the snow. We did beat the snow. So they're off weightlifting, and I'm here with a bunch of treasures to explore. I thought I'd share them with you, and I'll see you soon, Book 2. Thank you.